Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my VCT Pacific off-season grades. I'm finally getting to this video, recording this a couple days, maybe after I expected to, but we're finally doing it. I'm going to go through all 12 teams, give them a grade for what they did during the off-season, the changes they made, sometimes the changes they didn't make even, especially with the Pacific region where I think some teams maybe should have made some more changes or something like that, but we'll get into that in a little bit. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. We're pushing towards like 1.5k ish. I'm hoping I can get that like around the first international event. Maybe get to 2k by the end of the year. So yeah, that would really help me out. Go follow me on Twitter as well. I'll be tweeting all about like these initial like kickoff events once they start up, as well as just anything generally happening in the Valorant space. I post some other stuff on there about like football and whatnot. If you're interested in that as well, just go check that out. And yeah, let's get right into it. So we're gonna start with a pretty low grade here. I'm gonna give a C to DRX. I'm not super familiar with their new players. I know Freeing was pretty good in tier 2. And from the games that I've watched, I've really liked Athan. Hyunmin just seems like your average DRX developmental duelist, where he's just like, I don't know. He doesn't seem the most aware of what's going on, but man, his mechanical skill is pretty good. So that's about all I got on those three players. Freeing, I haven't really watched a ton of the Initiator, but I thought the Senti looked pretty solid. And I do think there is potential with these three players, but a lot of what this grade is from who they lost. Because Buzz is one of the best duelists in Pacific. I think some people might argue that he is the best duelist, which I don't agree with. It's just texture. But Buzz is still very, very good and the elite, like one of the elite duelists in the world. So losing him is automatically going to tank your grade quite a bit. And then I wasn't huge. I tweeted about this when they actually made these moves, but I wasn't huge on them removing both Foxy 9 and Bane because I think this team made a lot of progress, especially towards the end of the year. And when you swap out like 3 of your 5 players, that kind of resets a lot of what that progress was. And I just feel like last year was supposed to be like that developmental year for DRX, and they kind of just seemingly decided, no, we're actually going to take another developmental year. Probably miss out on they're probably going to have the same scripts last year. Miss out on the first international event. Probably make the playoffs because it's DRX and they'll be good. And then make another event in there at some point. I don't know. I don't have a ton of faith in DRX to be super great, but obviously it's DRX. They're going to be solid. This org has always been decent, at least in Valorant. So, yeah. Obviously, they kept Mako and Flashback, probably the 2 best players on that team outside of Buzz. Buzz was probably second best behind Mako, but still. Also, Freeing's IGLing a little bit. I think I saw something like that. I don't know. I haven't been paying it super close attention. I'll probably figure that out before I do like the player rankings and what's it called? What's the power rankings? That's what that's called. The like one thing I do on this channel. So yeah, DRX not a great start to these specific off-season grades, but I think despite this low grade, I still think they're going to be a good team. Like just because they're rated as a C grade for their off-season grade doesn't mean they'll be a C tier team when it comes around to it in the power rankings. Is pretty much how I like to explain it. Then next up we have T1, adding in Buzz here, getting an A. They added Buzz and Meteor, which are probably the biggest pickups any team made in the offseason, in terms of picking up like tier 1 players from other teams. Like I think the other ones are like Jaw to G2. That's probably bigger. I think some people would say Narrate to Sen. I would say Bang to Sen is a bigger one in my opinion. But yeah, just 2 great pickups. I'm not as huge on the Sylvan signing. I think if they picked up a Smokes player that I liked a little bit better, like I don't even know. I need to have a list in front of me. But like if they picked up a different Smokes player or something like that, maybe then I would be like, this is an A plus, if not even higher. Obviously, they also lost Rossi, who was a pretty good player for them, but they're going full Korean, so I can't really like judge them too much on that. And then Izu was a little bit inconsistent last year, but I think him being on that like scan initiator role, I think he'll be both allowed to do that and will be a little bit better because I actually do like how he's looked on that role, both in the past and right now. Then on to Genji here, who I give a B plus. Uh, I think a lot of this B plus is just I like the process that this team went through if you had to lose 2 players. These would have been the 3 players I kept: Texture, Munchkin, Charon. Uh, which I think, like, some people would debate Charon versus Meteor, but Charon had an extra year on his contract, which is probably why they kept him over Meteor. Um, like, if Charon was the one that it was expiring and Meteor wasn't, then they probably would have kept Meteor, and I would have been a little bit lower on this offseason. Probably still would have given it a B plus though, because it's kind of 50-50 there. I also thought what Meteor did was maybe more replicable, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. But the Yeoman pickup looks really nice to replace Lakia. I think he potentially looks even better than Lakia did. His utility matches Lakia's and is, if not better, and his mechanical skill, it definitely seems better than Lakia's was. Then Foxy 9, I said here that I love the process on this pickup. And what I mean by that is he really fits that similar mold to Meteor, the former duelist player trying to play the Sentinel role, can kind of take their own timings. Now, Foxy 9 will be a worse version of that, of what Meteor was. I'm not going to say that he's going to be Meteor or better than Meteor, but I think if you want somebody to fit into your system, I think Foxy 9 could potentially be that player. Now, there was other players out there that I definitely would have liked better, like what we talked about with T1 just now, with Saya player, who I think would fit really, really well in that role. Um, but they end up going with Foxy instead, which I kind of get, but also kind of don't. I don't know. So yeah, B plus there for Genji, just because I like what they did in terms of their process, but obviously I don't love that they had to lose the 2 players, which is why this is not an A. Then Nongshim, just no changes here. I like that. That's good. Not really too much else to say, honestly. But we'll talk about Paper Rex next as well. Another team that I do actually like that they didn't make any changes. Now, in the offseason grades, or not the offseason, in the offseason just in general, in my rebuild series that I did say that I would make changes to this team. I said I would drop Mind Freak for Excurate, get a real IGL and stuff, play some more real comps. And I do still kind of believe that, which is why I'm giving them a B plus. But they do seem to be making wholesale changes to like the comps that they're running more meta stuff, making sure you have that scan initiator and your info sentinel being a cipher or killjoy on most maps. They're running a little bit less double duelist, especially less Reyna. They did run it on Abyss, but that I don't know. That was like one map, so I'll give them that. And yeah, I just think this team overall should be in a better spot going into next year to be at least a little bit more consistent, and get more consistent results against good teams and have more flexibility even because like now Jing's playing Sentinel on top of what he already played. Something's playing more Sova and other roles like that. Forsaken's playing more Duelist, which he has played before, but like is still, I mean, like he is the most flexible player in the world. Mind Freak's still on the smoke stuff. I think that's fine. I still would have picked up an IGL probably over him, which is why this is a B plus and not an A, like Nongshim was. And then Devai, who has been playing a little bit of Sova and some Sentinel. I still don't think he's fully the answer here. Like, I still do think eventually, if this doesn't work, we could get to a point where Paper X is going into maybe split 2 with Jing, Something, and Forsaken, as well as 2 new players. Even you could just say Something and Forsaken, because Jing has kind of been underperforming up until he was put on Sentinel, but his Sentinel has looked pretty good. So it's kind of suggestions of potential changes for Paper X rather than actually saying like, hey, I think they should make this change right now. I think these set comps, like these meta comps, I think should be tried out with this roster before they make any changes, though. So I like what they're doing in the offseason. We'll just have to wait and see if it works in real games. And now we got to talk about Team Secret, who I'm going to give a D here. I think this team really needed to make changes. Jeremy just isn't that super impactful duelist, especially when you get into the big games. Like when you get into those like playoff games to qualify for international events, it feels like every single game he's like fucking something up in the round, whether it be that one round where I think it was the one where he tried to dash updraft onto like the top mid and ascent, not ascent, abyss, and he just fucking missed and just died. Like stuff like that, it feels like happens quite a bit with him in those big games. I think Jesse Vash is an okay IGL. Like he's fine. He is a big part of what this org is, so I get keeping him like he's good enough. While 2GE just like is so mid and like I don't know, he has never impressed me ever when he's been uh in a team or something like that. Like when he's been in the server, I guess he hasn't been super impressive. And then like Wild Oreo and Envy, I think are really good and pieces that you can build around. Wild Oreo a little bit less so. Like if you wanted to do a full rebuild here, just around Envy, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But I think Wild Oreo is also a good piece, just to kind of keep some continuity. Um, I don't remember what I did with this. I think in the off season, all I did was change one player out. But like even if they did one change, being 2GE specifically, I think I would be perfectly fine with that. But they made no changes, and they're going to go into next year kind of just being that middling Pacific team that doesn't really accomplish anything throughout the year. So I don't know. Just it seems like this team maybe didn't want to go out and sign somebody else and spend the money to do that in terms of the org point of view. I hope that's not what it is. I hope they actually like wanted to make changes and the player said no. I don't know. It's just it seems weird to me that this team didn't make changes. I don't know why nobody else is talking about it. Probably because it's team secret, but I don't know. Just confusing to me. Then we also have Talon making no changes. I think that's good. They made champs last year. Accidentally right clicked there. Made champs. Made a lot of progress throughout the year, and I think this team should continue to make progress. I haven't watched all of their offseason games. I watched the which one was it? The 10 Asia Invitational, and people were still talking about how Premi was deadlifting Talon and the rest of the players sucked, which just did not seem true to me. It felt like, especially on their ascent against DRX, it felt like they were setting Premi up so well and all their set plays were working so well against DRX uh, that it was just like he was getting kills off that and stuff. I'm not saying Premi's bad, but I think he is definitely overrated by the wider like fan whatever, just because he's a ranked player and he is very mechanically gifted. I think there's a lot of potential in Primi. I just don't think he's fully there yet. Right now, not saying they should drop him, not saying anything like that. I think they should continue developing him because he is very good. Um, I just think the narrative that this team is Primi and friends is kind of stupid and won't play out once you get to the regular season here. So I don't know. Just weird to me that people are talking like that. And yeah, the rest of this roster is really good too. Like Governor is really good, Jit Boys is really good, Band's really good, and Cruz is a solid IGL. So yeah, good no changes for Talon. Then onto some of these teams that only really made one change. You have RRQ, Kush coming in. I think he seems pretty solid from the games I've watched. Not super familiar with him heading into the offseason, but I have watched a few of the RRQ games, and I do like how he looks. Elmy Moore was a solid player last year, and I was kind of surprised they let him go, but I'm not like gonna kill them for it. He just did have a tendency to like throw around sometimes, which I think was probably why. they decided to go with Kush instead, who seems to be more of a solid decision making player and everything like that. So, yeah, good move. B plus for RRQ, but not quite an A, just because it could potentially lead to them having a little bit less firepower. But Kush also looks really well, really good mechanically. So maybe I'm talking myself into an A minus, something like that here. Now on to Boom, a team that I really don't have much to say about, but a team that just wasn't good enough last year to ascend, and they made an upgrade coming into Tier 1 here. I think that's pretty good process by me, or by this team. I like pretty much this whole roster. Like Famous I like, Shiro I like, Berserks I like, NC Slasher I'm a little bit less familiar with. But DOS9 coming in here, I thought he was sick last year in Tier 2 when I watched him. So yeah, I'm going to give Boom an A here, which is probably higher than a lot of people would give them. Because like, yeah, you'd think, okay, the team kind of got a freebie to come into Tier 1. They'll let the roster play it out. But no, they're going to make an upgrade. They're going to try to stay in Tier 1 this next year, which I think is a very, very, very good process by whether it be the org or the roster making the swap. I think it's a very good one. Now onto Zeta here, who I'm going to give an A minus. I really like the 3 players that they added here in CLZ, XDLL, and in Ciota. I think they made pretty clear upgrades at Flex and Flash Initiator. At Scan and Flash Initiator with CLZ and XDLL. I think mechanically they're so far clear of what Euron and Hero Run were last year, and should give upgrades to both with XDLL, the calling, and just mechanically for both the players. The 2 players that they kept, I really like them keeping. They were the players that I expected them to keep in Dep and Sugar Zero. Then with Last retiring, what I personally would have done, and the reason this is an A minus, is I would have kept Hero Run, but on Sentinel. I thought he was unbelievable in 2023 in Tier 2 on Sentinel. And it was really disappointing to not see him play it until really his confidence was cooked at the end of the year. So I think if they put him back on that role heading into 2025, he would look a lot better than he did last year. But also Ciota is also very good, so I'm perfectly fine with that. I think this roster, I don't exactly know how this is going to gel together, but I do think the individual players are all very good, and I have confidence that this team will look at least decent. And now DFM, who I'm going to give a B plus to the other Japanese team. I think they made massive, like even bigger than Zeta did, massive upgrades in Akame and Jinbong in those Flex and Sentinel roles. I think those players are incredible. Probably the best players in their roles out of Tier 2 Japan. I think both of them are Korean, but they played in Japanese Tier 2. The reason this is a B plus is I think Art and Gian are a little bit more questionable pickups in terms of like me personally, I have more questions about whether they'll be good or not. Specifically, Gian. Art has looked good in terms of the calling. I think he's a fun player in terms of he refuses to buy a rifle. He's always Odining or judging, it feels like. Which for a player that isn't super mechanically gifted, like in any sense of the word, I think is actually pretty good. Like I think players like maybe like FNS specifically when he's playing Sentinel could be trying that a little bit more. But yeah, I think he has looked good, but I do still have some questions about him. And then Gian, I just haven't seen enough. I would like to see him, like they were playing a lot of, hold on, the games that I watched of him. He was playing a lot of Clove, which I don't think exactly is going to hold up. Like he played Clove against Lev in the Riot 1 Invitational or whatever it's called, but he did play some Omen, didn't statistically play very well, and then played Omen again and again, didn't look statistically too great. Like his only like semi decent games are are while he's playing Clove and not while he's playing Omen. So obviously stats aren't everything, but I do think that is a little bit concerning for a player like him who has like literally doesn't have a VLR game outside of DFM. Obviously, he played a show match. If you actually count that, shut up. But But yeah, there just are questions about Kien that I think he'll need to answer, specifically during kickoff in terms of his flexibility, being able to play like other smokes agents, whether it be the Omen, the Brim, the Astra, which I think this team could be pretty limited not having a player like that. But I do think this team's goal this offseason should have been to find one or two more players to build around outside of May. Obviously, you're going to keep May. Like, there's no way. Then last up here, we have Global Esports, who are a team that needed a full scale rebuild. And for that rebuild, I'm going to give them a B, just because I'm not super familiar outside of the couple games that they've played on Global Esports with Patrick Hu, Kelly S, and Poppy. Crystal and Udotan are very, very good, and I think it should be great pieces moving forwards. I think you could maybe say similar to DFM in terms of like this being a full scale rebuild, maybe trying to find a player or two to build around into 2026 rather than just saying, hey, we're going to be the best team possible this year. Obviously, you're trying to hit on every player. That's not what I'm saying at all, that they're trying to only hit on two. But I think those are definitely the most likely two to hit, especially while Crystal's not IGLing. Um, I think he'll be very, very good individually. The one thing that I didn't like that they did was not keeping Blaze King. I think he was very good. I think a lot of him retiring was to do with not being on a team, like being already cut by Global. I think if he was on Sentinel, you brought in Udotan on Flex. I think Kelly S is the IGL, right? I believe. I Somebody's gonna have to correct me on that. Um, but like if you did that and then like maybe Kelly S moved around to a different role or something like that, or Crystal was just IGLing, I think maybe that would have been a little bit better because I do think Blaze King Sentinel is very good. Um, but yeah, I just we'll wait and see with Global. I think that's what a lot of this is. Just because I don't have a ton of information on Patrick Hu, Kelly S, and Poppy. But the other two pickups are very good, and I do actually believe in Global a lot more than I have in past years. So with that, that's going to be the video. I'll go back through the grades here real quick for you guys. I give a C to DRX, A to T1, B plus to Gen G, A to Nongshim, B plus to PaperX, D to Team Secret, A to Talon, B plus to RRQ, A to Boom, A minus to Zeta, B plus to DFM, and a B to Global. So let me know what you guys think of these grades in the comments below, as well as what you thought of the video. Like, subscribe, everything like that. And wait for my next video, which should be either player grades or power rankings, depending on what I feel like recording. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.